So, when one of the partners become equity in treatment in this concept, we must understand the most important case law. The case law is Garner versus Murray. Garner versus Murray. What is this case law is? The Garner versus Murray, I will explain the concept of case law Garner versus Murray. So in this case law, which took place in the year 1904 in the Great Britain, where there were three partners. One is Garner, Murray, and the third one is Vikin. These three people were partners. In the year 1900, they started a clothing business where they were selling clothes. And immediately after the 1 or 2 years, I am not sure of the years, but the case law was 1904, it is for sure. So what has happened? One of the partner, Vikin, became insolvent. Once this fellow Vikin became an insolvent, then what has happened? The loss which was incurred due to the Vikin's insolvency has to be borne by whom? The solvent partners. The solvent partners. The most important is these three people were sharing profit and loss equally when they started the business. They were sharing their profit and losses equally when they started the business. Then the question arises, when one of the partners becomes insolvent and he incurs the loss, and where he is unable to bring anything to meet, to cover this loss, then in such a case, then who has to bear? The partners, that is Garner and Murray, has to bear the loss. Alright. See, bear in mind, we are talking about this is partnership firm, whereby partners are individually liable to pay the liabilities. It is not a company form of business, right? So it is partnership. Then there was a dispute between the Garner and Murray regarding the distribution of the losses. Then these people approached the court of law and filed a case. In this case, the court of law gave a verdict in the year 1904. The court of law stated that in the case of Garner versus Murray, the loss due to insolvency of one of the partners should be covered by the solvent partners. The point number one should be loss due to insolvency of one of the partners should be met by or should be borne by solvent partners. So this loss should be borne by the solvent partners. Then the question arises, which ratio? First, the court of law decided that the loss should be borne by or met by or covered by solvent partners, the loss due to insolvency. Then second one is, the question arises in which ratio they need to bear. The court of law gave a verdict stating that the ratio of loss bearing should be the capital ratio. Which ratio? Capital ratio. So in which ratio? The ratio should be capital ratio. Irrespective, immaterial, whatever it may be, their profit sharing ratio, it may be equal or any proportion. But the court of law gave a verdict that it should be capital ratio. The question arises, which capital? Capital stood on the date of dissolution. Capital stood on the date of dissolution with the adjustment of reserves and losses. So reserves and losses should be adjusted in the capital before making the capital ratio. Suppose you have some general reserve in the firm, that should be added to capital. If you have some losses, that should be deducted from the capital. So capital ratio will be formed. Then presume that the fourth point, suppose there are four partners, presume that A, B, C, D. C has become insolvent. On the date of dissolution, presume that these two people are having credit balance in their capital account. Unfortunately, D is having some debit balance in his capital account. Debit balance, these two people are having credit balance in their capital account. In such a case, the partner who is having debit balance is not entitled to or liable to make the payment of damages, that is loss due to insolvency. He is excused by the law because he is not eligible to incur the loss due to insolvency. So any partner is having debit balance on the date of dissolution is not eligible, not entitled to incur the, not entitled to share the loss of the insolvent partner, though he is a solvent. That is immaterial, right? So next, the most important is, and the next point is fifth point, in the sense this is the debit balance capital partner not liable to pay the losses. And the last point, that is fifth point, the most important, that is the realization loss. The realization loss is very important here. The court of law stated that the solvent partner, whoever declaring themselves are solvent, they should suppose to prove their solvency. How they should suppose to prove their solvency? By bringing the cash. What they need to bring? The cash. By bringing cash, they need to prove their solvency. How much cash they should suppose to bring? To the extent of realization loss. To the extent of realization loss, they should suppose to bring the cash. Suppose A's realization loss is 10,000, B's is 20,000, presume that. So this amount they should suppose to bring to the firm and declare their solvency, that they are solvent enough. Once this loss is brought, then the loss of this insolvent partner will be distributed in capital ratio, right? So these are the precisely very important points that I have discussed here regarding Garner versus Murray case. Briefly, the Garner versus Murray case law took place in the year 1994 in the Great Britain. The court of law gave a verdict stating that the loss due to one of the partners should be borne by the solvent partners, and the most important, which ratio? In the ratio of capital, though their profit sharing ratio might be differ. Then the capital ratio should be calculated on the basis of capital stood on the date of dissolution with the adjustment of reserves and losses. And the most important, the solvent partners has to prove their solvency by bringing the cash to the extent of realization loss. right? So in this way, the court of law gave a verdict. Then you might be getting confused that, sir, this case took place in the year of 1904 in the Great Britain. Now we are in India. Why do we follow this case law? The most important is most of the laws made from the Britain laws, at the same time contradicting to this case law, there is no specific verdict given in India which is contradicting to this case law. If any such verdict is available in the court of law which is contradicting, stating in a different way than the Garner versus Murray, then we would have applied that case law. As of now, there is no case law in India. There is no specific verdict of the court of law in India regarding or contradicting to this case law. Hence, we will follow the Garner versus Murray case law, which is very, very important one. So in the examination, you may be asked a theory question. Explain the Garner versus Murray case law. We have seen this question was asked even for short 4 marks, even for 12 marks even. So once you listen this explanation, I hope there is no doubt you can easily write at least 1 page regarding this case law by explaining the 5 points that I have furnished here. Right? I hope this Garner versus Murray case law I have made you clear. Right? Now in the